Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Batchelor Pad. We thank you for joining us as always. It's L.A. Batchelor. Thanks to Tom Donaldson. My name is L.A. Batchelor. We're going to try to give you the best in sports and beyond. 646-929-0130. The number to get in touch with us. Press 1 to get on the line. If you have a question, comment, concern, hit us there. You can also hit us on Facebook at Pad Nation and at Pad Nation 2 at Twitter with questions and comments there as well. I want to go to the phones to bring in our first guest, first time inside the pad. He is the head softball coach at Norfolk State University. He's James Inzana. And, Coach, I hope I said your name correctly, first of all. Thank you for joining us. You have L.A. Batchelor alongside Tony McClain.
Hey, L.A., you definitely did. And hello, Tony. Glad to meet you, too, on the radio, on the podcast.
Absolutely. So, Coach, you guys had a good weekend. Nice sweep over Coppin State in conference play. You had a pair of pitchers doing really well for you. Talk about this sweep and how important is it for you guys, in particular this last game where they were very dominant. Ms. Hunter was very dominant in this last game with the shutout. But talk about how important this weekend was, especially, going into this weekend, kind of playing at the 500 ball.
It's extremely important anytime you're in the conference. Obviously, the goal for any team is to win the conference and get into the playoffs because mid-level Division I, low-level Division I, at-large bids are almost unheard of. I mean, it's possible, but highly unlikely. So your easiest route to get into regionals is obviously win your conference and, get a high seed and then win the tournament, your conference tournament, to get the automatic bid. And I think that's every team's goal in any conference, and especially for us in the MEAC. It's our goal. We haven't been there in a while. And it's this weekend was a good stepping stone, and it pretty much guaranteed us to get into the tournament. Now, we're setting our sights on trying to be the number one team in the North, but we got a couple of real good teams to defeat to get there.
Coach, for those who are not familiar with your program, talk about your talent. And I just have to say, because, we're in the season of baseball, softball, and I think it's very important, not just your program, but the HBCUs that, in your conference and stuff, get the exposure that they deserve, in particular softball, because a lot of people don't understand how well pitched and how much of a great game it is. It takes a lot of skill, in particular the pitchers, to do what they do. But talk about the program, talk about softball in the MEAC.
Okay, I'd be glad to. Softball, to begin with, I was fortunate enough to play both baseball and softball, and just for me, softball has always been a little more difficult, especially hitting-wise, because in baseball you really don't have the up pitch, and softball you do, so it's a different angle or a different approach, so it tends to throw most baseball players off. And your swing, it's got to be a compact swing, so a pitcher throwing the ball at 65, 70 miles an hour is equivalent to a baseball pitcher throwing 100 miles an hour. Pretty close. And I know somebody's got the chart out there with the equivalency, but you have to really, you have to be quick with your swing. So it's extremely difficult. You have less than 4/100ths of a second to go ahead and get ready to evaluate a ball and hit the ball. So it's a great game because it's fast. The field's small. It goes by quick. Hour and a half, game's done. Hour and 20 minutes. And sometimes, like you alluded to this past weekend, you have a pitcher's duel on both sides. I thought the Coppin State pitcher. She did a great job at shutting our bats down after the second inning. She made a phenomenal adjustment, and we just couldn't adjust to hit her after that. Luckily, that we, like you said, our pitching was pretty dominant. We did a great job in the circle, hitting our spots, keeping the batters off balance, and behind the defense did a fantastic job too, and made the plays that we had to make. For the HBCUs, it's this year especially Bethune-Cookman had a huge win over Oregon. I think Oregon was ranked in the top 25, and Bethune actually beat them. I want to say it was 5-3. Don't quote me on that, but they did come out victorious. That was a really big win for the HBCU. So kudos to Bethune-Cookman. And anytime you can, you can get on radio or you can get on the TV and promote the sport itself and promote it for the HBCUs to get it out there that we are competitive. We do have really good programs, strong programs. It helps everyone in general. First, we grow the sport, then we grow our programs.
Talking, if you're just joining us, of course, we're talking with the coach at Norfolk State University softball coach, James Inzana. Before I go to Tony and Reggie Howells on the line as well, Coach, you talked about the dynamics. You've been fortunate enough, blessed enough to play baseball and softball. I played softball leisurely, played baseball for real. And I'm sure the intensity is certainly different as opposed, leisurely and playing on a team to actually try to win, to help your team win. But talk about those specific differences between the two, if you will, baseball and softball. And the fact that I would imagine your team going into play this past weekend against a team that's only got 5 wins all year, let's be clear, that you still coach the same thing. It's the same approach, one game at a time. Anybody can win that type of thing. But is there any sort of feeling sometimes with some of your players where they feel like, oh, we got Copper State coming in, this will be an easy weekend, that kind of thing, where you have to kind of keep them grounded as well?
Definitely, L.A., you definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. It happens frequently, and it happens on both sides of the spectrum for us and them. Teams we go play that sometimes overlook us, and we'll come around, come away with the victory, or, in the 5th inning, they'll have to change gears or try to change gears, and it's usually too late. We really focus on just take care of what we can do. Play our game, don't play the other team's game. So when we go in, our mentality is, and our ladies like to say, in fact, one of our center fielder, who's a phenomenal outfielder, likes to do a little chant, "Where my dog's at," and then they'll all start barking and get them intense and get them fired up and get them the mentality that's our game. We play our game regardless of what the other team does. We're going to play our game. Now, within that, though, we will make adjustments to what the other team is doing, but the goal is always to play our game, and that's to pitch the ball well, play strong defense, and make things happen on offense. We do run bases pretty well. We're aggressive on the bases, and we will hit and run a lot. But again, if you find yourself, and I do believe we found ourselves, a few times this year where we played at the competitors' pace or their tempo, and it kind of just deadened us flat, and we didn't do anything after the 2nd or 3rd inning. That did happen a few times. So we really focus on what we can do, and I try to emphasize that in the game.
Yeah, I would imagine it has to be the same type of intensity, the same type of preparation. It's see the ball, hit the ball, same thing. I mean, really,
it is.
It's not much change in that. We're talking with James Inzana. He's the head softball coach at Norfolk State University. If you have a question, hit us up. The number, once again, 646-929-0130, or hit us up on Facebook at Pad Nation. And Pat Nation, the number 2 at Twitter. With that, I turn the questions over to my good friend, longtime friend and colleague and co-host, Tony T-Mac McClain.
Coach, thanks for joining us. The fact that you guys have already played like about 30 games, which is more than a lot of major league teams have done, and plus you've had to do it with the weather being, not so great condition-wise. I know, early on you guys go to Florida and warm weather states, but how do you make that transition with the weather being such a factor this time of the year? We're
fortunate, believe it or not. I mean, we're not as fortunate as California and Florida or Louisiana, but we're still, we're more fortunate than obviously the northern states. So we count our blessings for that. The fact that we are in a decent location for we get most of our games in. And like you said, we have 30. I think we're 34 games right now, or 36 games right now. So we do play in some really inclement weather. I can tell you that I myself have been on this field at 5 o'clock in the morning, pushing off water off a tarp and off the field, using a shop vac, using whatever we can to get the field ready by 1 o'clock to play, to play 3 games, 2 or 3 games, and tarp it again and do the same thing the next morning just so we get the game in. We have a fantastic maintenance crew here who does the same thing. They understand that we have to get the games in because it's how you really, to get better, the games are probably more valuable than practice because it's hard to simulate everything in practice. The games, you just, obviously LA's talked about it, he played. You can't simulate, seeing a different pitcher with the ball moves different, your timing. It's invaluable. So trying to get as many games in the season before the end of the season, it helps every team out there, and us included.
Same thing with me in LA. I also allegedly played softball recreationally and tried to do the same thing baseball-wise, and that's why I'm talking to you now. So I'll leave it at that. You play Del State this weekend. Now you've already had a chance to play them once this year, and they were able to nip you a bit. Talk about what this week. Talk about what you're going to try to do this weekend, and of course, it being a MEAC game, it's an important game as well.
Yeah, we're gonna do the exact same. We're gonna go the same way we went the last game. I mean, Del State did a fantastic job on defense. They actually brought a home run back in the field. Their center fielder did. She made 2 fantastic plays. Their shortstop made a diving play in the hole, in the 7-8 hole. I mean, she was horizontal when she caught the ball. They play fantastic defense, and hats off to the coach. She played a textbook game. We allow a runner on with either an error or a base hit, and they'd bunt her over and they'd get the hit. So we alluded to earlier, is that sometimes it just doesn't fall your way, and we ended up giving 300 runs up, and they beat us 4-3. But I feel like they're going to be good games again, like they always are. But I think the same approach we used last time, we're going to stick with it this game. I don't think we're going to change too much. I feel pretty confident we match up well with them.
All righty. Thank you, Coach.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Coach, I want to go to our good friend Reggie Howell. He's in Richmond, Virginia as well. Go ahead, Reg.
Good afternoon, Coach. How you doing, sir?
Well, Reggie, how about yourself?
Pretty good. Coach Charles Scott is a very dear friend of mine, so please tell him hello next time you get a chance to holler at your brother.
I will.
Yeah. But, Coach, can you tell me your makeup as far as diversity on your team, and a follow-up, if I may, as far as the diversity of your team?
Yeah, definitely. We're probably about 50%. It's close to 50%, 60-40, 50-50, and our incoming class is 50-50. I try to keep it, on purpose, try to keep it as diverse as possible. I had, before I came here and before I was at Virginia Wesleyan, I spent 20 years in the military, and, extremely diverse community. And I learned growing up, and I learned in the military, that we're all the same. It's just, I don't know, breaking down barriers. I don't know why society still has them. I have no idea why they're still out there, and people abuse power, and it's middle-class people. We're the ones that, that try to divide when we're all on the same page. So me as a person, personally, I want diversity on the team. I am going to try my hard to keep the diversity on the team, and we gel as a team so well that as a coach, I don't have to do any exercises for the team, any games, anything. They click so well as a group, and it's refreshing as a coach just sitting back watching how well they get along and how tight they are.
Yeah, the reason why I said that, because number one, there's no secret that if you look at the sports such as golf and baseball, a lot of our HBCUs have diversity, but it's in the opposite direction, and that's not a bad thing. But when it comes to Title IX, how do you fight for funding for your sports? Because some people know Howard University had to shut down baseball because of revenue drainer. And unfortunately, I know you guys on a shoestring budget like a lot of HBCUs. So how do you fight to preserve Title IX, and also how you fight for funding for your team?
We're pretty fortunate here that, Mr. Miller and Ms. Webb. Mr. Miller's been here for 45 years, so, he's got a ton of experience, and he does a great job. So really, I haven't had to fight that battle yet. They've been pretty equitable with everybody. It's obviously you did say it. We're on a shoestring budget. We fundraise just as much at this program as I did at a Division III program. To function, we have to, and we're not as fortunate as some of these other teams. And I don't know if there is a softball team out there that's positive in revenue. There might be, maybe Alabama or UCLA who fills the stands, but most, I'd say 90%, maybe 95% programs all lose money, and that's most programs and most college programs. There's probably 20-25% that make money in the nation. Everybody else loses money. So it's not a big business, but it is I think what we miss or we don't capture, we do a good job of capturing, is that your student athletes, believe it or not, on average have a better GPA, have a higher, well, at least on the HBCU, have a better GPA, have a higher graduation rate. And as a previous employer, I like to see an athlete myself because I know, number one, you're disciplined. You'll get up in the morning, you're responsible, you're going to do the grind. You understand what a grind is like. So you come into a job, I know you're not, just going to come in and when it gets tough, you're going to walk away. You're going to stick it out.
Yeah, one last question, sir. How do you protect
sir.
your players from being plucked from the Division I? Because let's be honest, if you have like the hypothetically speaking Ricky Weeks, who was the Golden Spider Award back in Southern back in the day, the vultures are looking at your program. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, you're with the new portal that opened up. It has definitely changed the game a lot. All I try to do is I try to be open and transparent with our players, and and show them that they're truly loved. I mean, I really do love everything. I want to see them in power. I treat them just like I treat my daughters. I hold the same standards, hold values, and I honestly, I feel as long as they feel that way, I don't think they'll ever go because they're happy where they're at. If they do go, I'm a coach that's going to let them go. If it's what's going to make you happy, then I support it. So if you feel like you need to be on a bigger stage, and you feel like your talent warrants it, and that's what will make you happy, then I'm not going to try to keep you back because there's somebody else that wants to be in that spot, and I know they'll work just as hard. They might not be as talented, but they will. And I told our team the other day, our team makeup, I asked them, I came straight out and asked them, I said, name one team we've played this year who wasn't bigger than us, wasn't stronger than us, and wasn't faster than us. And they named one team. I said, okay, except that team because they have, there's 297 softball teams. Their strength of schedule is 297. So count somebody that has a strength of schedule above yours. And I think currently we're like at 249 or 245 or something like that. I said, name somebody that's above you. And we can't. They're all, they're all bigger, stronger, and faster. And I looked at them. I said, you're right. They are. I said, they really are. I said, but you're beating them. You're beating those teams. I said, because you know why? The game doesn't care how big you are, how strong you are, and how fast you are. It cares how well you can execute. It cares how disciplined you are, and it cares how you play it. That's all it cares. I was like, now, if you meet a team that's just as disciplined as you are and executes like you do, and they are bigger, stronger, talented, the odds are in their favor. And that's what happens when you get to, the Power Fives. They're usually just as disciplined, and the odds are in their favor. Doesn't mean you can't beat them, just the odds are in their favor. Yeah.
Well, sir, in closing, watch the underground pledging. I ain't to say nothing else, do I, sir?
All right, Reggie, all right.
That's the HBCU thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know what I'm talking about, Coach. Thank you.
I do, sir. I do.
Coach, LA again. If you had an opportunity to change any part of the game, what would that be? And that's a question that came via email.
Via email, if I could change anything in the game itself.
Yep.
I love this game. I really do. I think it's a fast and exciting game. If you back the pitchers up to help the hitters out, it actually helps the pitchers out because the ball would break a little more just because it's called the Magnus effect, how a ball actually moves. So that would actually probably benefit the pitchers a little bit. I mean, guys throw it 46 feet, and some guys it's crazy how much the ball moves. If I could change one thing, I tell you what, if I could change one thing about this game, and I guess it would go across all Division I sports, Division II, Division III, is that funding for all programs would have to be the same. So it would run just, I guess, similar to the Major League Baseball. You'd have a funding for every program, or a cap, a minimum, maximum, and you'd have to stay within that value. So everybody would get funded the same, and it would really level the playing field, because it's not too level right now. It's extremely slanted, and a lot of people know it. A lot of people don't. But it's, you see a Bethune-Cookman beat an Oregon. It's a phenomenal win. I mean, every chip in the table, is stacked against them.
Yeah, and that's big. I mean, and I think that goes across the board. If Bethune-Cookman can beat an Oregon softball, is just as significant if, say, you guys beat, some top basketball team. Or whatever.
It would be like the men's hockey team winning the Olympics when they did back whenever that was. Yeah, it's a crazy upset. Yeah. I mean, you go to Oregon. I'm not saying just them, but most Power 5 schools, they have their own facility with a couple batting cages, if not 4 or 5 batting cages. We don't even have a batting cage here. We have nothing.
Wow.
We have a gymnasium that we have to front toss in. We don't even have a locker room for our players. So I mean, we do what we have to do, and we're appreciative of what we have, and we make it work. Because I know, that we do what we can for the girls here. We help them out as much as we can. We do what we can, and I know it's just going to keep going. We're going to go forward with it. But you can look at what you don't have, and you can complain about it, or you can just focus on what you do have and keep going forward.
Yeah, Coach, you're absolutely right. Two more questions before you go. We're talking with James Inzana, Head Softball Coach at Norfolk State University. Coach, what about on the baseball side professionally? I'm sure you follow the game and love the game on the baseball side. I'm from Connecticut, and I'm from the southern part of the state, so I'm a Yankee fan. I'm certainly not a Red Sox fan, so I was definitely upset last year.
I'm sure Boston just curled their toes. Oh, my goodness. The Connecticut guy for the Yankees.
Yeah, it was just horrible.
Oh,
and I don't even want to get into my
shame.
Yankees and their injuries already, and I'm messing my own. I'm giving my own self a headache in bringing this up. But having said that, who do you see in American League and the National League that contend for a title, or do you just think that Boston will repeat and win again?
I'll tell you what, I really like the Phillies' makeup this year. I mean, I don't know Bryce Harper myself, but who they brought in and the way Bryce is working, it's working well for that team right now. I think they can surprise some people. I think they have the right pieces of the puzzle, but I mean, obviously Boston's struggling right now. And you're probably happy about that.
Very much so.
I tell you what, I watch my Phillies play, because I'm a Phillies fan. Obviously, that's why I had to throw them out there. But I watch the Phillies play, and I don't really start focusing on who I think can make playoffs and who's got the team till about halfway through, because you keyed on it already. You can have one injury, and it can change the dynamics of your team, and you can go from a title contender to a middle-of-the-road team with one injury, especially in the circle. You take off your number 1 or 2 starter, you're talking about now going from winning one out of every 3 or 4 games to losing, 2 or 3 out of every 4.
Yeah. Back to your team. You guys coming off of you won 4 in a row. You split with Hampton before sweeping Coppin State. Now you get ready, and I know you've struggled a little bit on the road. So you go on the road for 3 at Delaware State. What are the keys at least, winning the series, if not sweeping the series?
Well, I think the key for us is obviously just offense. Just keep hitting. The one difference we've done this year over last year is I actually purchased a GoPro and brought my own TV in the office and set it up in the office, and we do film review, and you'll review the film, and you'll literally see, strikes being called in the other batter's box, and our players will get upset at it because they're like, "Well, I can't hit that, coach." And what I'll do is I'll tell them, I was like, "Look, you have no control over that. You can't change what's being called, and if it's being called for both sides, it's fair. There's nothing you can do about it. That's the zone. You have to adjust." So I'll take them on the field, and I'll put a ball on a tee and put it in the batter's box, and I'll grab a bat and I'll hit a home run off the tee in the batter's box. I'm like, it can be done. You just have to have the willpower, and you have to work on it or to execute it. So we really offensively have tried to widen what we're doing, but we stay disciplined in the game until we know we have to make that adjustment, which is usually the first time through the lineup. Then we'll make the adjustment the second time through if we have to, depending on what the pitcher's doing and what Blue's given and what he's not given. But I think the key for us, because we're playing pretty good, we're playing really good defensively all the way around. And in the circle, I think we're doing what we have to do. So it'd be offensively. We have to, we just got to get runners on, move them around, bring them in.
Yeah,
one at a time.
That definitely is a key. You guys get the pitching. I'm always nervous when you get the pitching and you only score 2 runs. Yeah, that would be a nail biter for me. Trying to get through the whole game with only a run or 2, or scoring early and then blanking the rest of the way, and given you really have to have a good pitching staff to get through that. Coach, we appreciate you coming on this evening. Let's make sure we get you on again. Thank you so much. Best of luck against Delaware State, and best of luck the rest of the year.
Well, I appreciate it very much, Elliot. Thank you, and I'm sure we'll get in touch. Hopefully it's after or before or after MEACs with good news.
Absolutely. Thanks, Coach. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night, guys.
Sure.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye.
James Inzana, he's the head softball coach at Norfolk State University here on the pad. A very optimistic guy, T, but also it's really tough to hear. And, we know if Norfolk State basketball doesn't have the funding, imagine what the softball is going through. And he gave you some examples, buying his own TV. They don't have the batting cages. They playing indoors or practicing indoors. It's definitely, something that is concerning. But in the scheme of it, you would hope that the 2 powerhouses at these programs, football and basketball, can fund it enough to get some of the facilities that they need.
And, he didn't even mention the Title IX issues. That's the thing that I think we always forget about in regards to women's sports, because even though it's been there, let's face it, they don't get a fair shake of that pie unless you're making money. That's what college sports, especially on the Division I level, it's coming down to. And it's funny he mentioned Oregon. I was watching some of the softball on the SEC network, and my God, some of the facilities in the SEC and the Pac-12. I mean, there are minor league teams that would be envious of the facilities that some of these schools have.
Yeah, and LA, real quick, that's why I asked the question about Title IX, because I can tell you the football budget is like on I better not say that because I'm going to get somebody in trouble. But
it's true, but it's true, though. It's true. It's just, it's no way around it, especially for HBCU. Yeah.
But T, we talked about it, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I ain't trying to get nobody in trouble.
No, and I think the concerns are too, Reggie, that Title IX it's like the Rooney Rule. It hasn't really lived up to what it was intended. Doesn't certainly go far enough. But again, it also speaks to how these college and universities are distributing the funds to keep the proverbial doors open. Like you mentioned, Howard's baseball team is gone.
Yeah.
And Winston-Salem's going to follow after this year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Virginia State had a powerhouse, and they're going to be gone too. Matter of fact, the CIAA dropped the whole damn thing. I don't understand.
Yeah.
See, how the women in CIAA are still playing softball. I don't understand that.
But let me ask you both this, and I ask you first, Reddy, since you're talking. How much is this a direct connect or a subtle connect in the demise of Black African American ball players? Jackie Robinson, of course, the historical moment yesterday, April 15th.
Yeah.
But how much of this is connected to our discussions, and it's been year after year, it seems, that we don't have a lot of African American playing at the highest level in baseball.
Well,
with universities getting rid of their programs is what I mean.
But like I said, we talk about Ricky Weeks, who was the Golden Spikes Award winner, then beat on same as the Heisman Trophy, and he came from an HBCU. But as T Max or Evelyn Front, I got to tag team with T on this. We look at sports as intramurals, and only because the SWAC is so heavy in baseball down south. T, help me with this, T, because you did a story about it, T.
Well, ironically, you probably see more Black players on the softball side than you do on the baseball side, college-wise. Now, but see, the thing is, because women's sports doesn't get the eyeballs and the attention that even college baseball get, we tend to think that we think that it's a broad brush thing. Look, we do this every year. I saw the numbers again. 68 Black players on opening day rosters, so it's down to basically just a little over 7%. And again, I don't want to pile on, but it's going to get worse before it gets better, because you basically have got about a dozen teams that have either one Black or no Blacks on their team. And while I'm very happy that they do celebrate Jackie Robinson Day, and the Robinson Foundation makes a bunch of money, and God bless them for being able to do that, and I'm so glad that Miss Rachel is still around to see the fruits of that. I wish there was something magical that could happen, but there's not a feeder system in the high schools. There's not a feeder system in the white colleges, and there's definitely not a feeder system in the Black colleges. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. That's why I made it a point this year. I'm watching every start that CC Sabathia makes this year, strictly because he's a soon-to-be Hall of Famer, and I want to be able to tell folks that I actually saw him play, him and McCutcheon and Adam Jones and Dominic Smith and all those guys. I still root for my team, but most nights I'm just saying, let me see what Josh Harrison's doing tonight with the Tigers. I see Edwin Jackson is playing for his 100th team in 99 years now, but he's still around. And
the point is too, T, is that CC almost makes me feel like Ken Griffey Jr. when he retired, like that. That kind of feel like that era is gone, and we're gonna another one.
Because you remember, Justin Upton is hurt. I think Melvin is either out of baseball or is hurt, so you don't know how many more years we're going to get from the Upton brothers, and they're basically going to be the last. They're going to be the last of the Mohicans if and when they retire. And again, and it's like I said, we go back and forth with this. I have the love-hate relationship with baseball. I love it, but I don't think the sport loves me and other Black folks back. And I wish there was one fell swoop that could happen. But the sport has a lot to blame. But also, I think a lot of kids, and and maybe the sport has to blame with this as well. Kids don't identify with baseball anymore. I mean, not as much as they did when we were growing up. And again, I'm trying not to be the old guy in the barbershop, but it's
you say, Sonny? Huh?
but it hurts. It hurts. And all of us, I always talk about, there's only 8 black baseball fans left in the country, and there's 3 of them online right now. So it's tough. It's very, very tough. I have to watch I have to watch Major League Baseball while gritting my teeth a lot of nights, because you look at some of these rosters and you look at some of the guys who have roster spots, and you say to yourself, there's got to be somebody because look, the next Jared Jeter, the next Barry Bonds, the next CC Sabathia isn't probably in the minor leagues right now. They're probably they may be playing hoops or football right now.
You're right.
And that's the reality. And that's the reality we have to deal with.
Yeah, and LA, real quick. That's why I asked the coach about the makeup of his team, because T-Mac again tag team on you. Hell, when you got golfers who are white and other ethnicities, and they come to HBU tournament and they talk about the history of blacks, and you look around and maybe one brother out of about 20 or 30, and baseball is the same thing. I mean, Winston had a ton of white players on their team at one time. Matter of fact, one kid from Virginia, who I know is a good friend of mine, he sent his son down there. He's European. Yeah. He chose to go down there and play.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Kudos to him, because he recognizes that they have a great program, and it's a damn shame that it's going to end after this year.
But isn't that though, Reggie, to your point, isn't that in the Orlando zone? Isn't that more to the point of the recruiting rather than the lack of talent and talent pool? In other words, I mean, you look at Bethune-Cookman right now, who's in the traditionally has had a good baseball team.
Yeah, powerhouse.
They always have Latin players and white players, and I mean, it's a recruiting thing. Now that doesn't mean that they shouldn't try to recruit more of the brothers. But what I'm saying is that it's a rainbow when it comes to some of these sports. It really is at the HBCU levels.
Well, I can tell you, LA, we got here in Richmond, George Webb High School, Willie Coker, who's part of the national championship team under Dave Robbins, is a basketball coach at George Webb. And the city players came and asked him, Coach, we want to play baseball. You got the basketball coach coaching baseball in the high school in the inner city. And you had to get their brains beat out, but at least they tried.
Yeah. And see, truth be told, with Bethune-Cookman, and this is no slight to him, their longtime coach, Mervin Melendez, he recruited a lot of Hispanic ball players, and they came there. And matter of fact, his successor has basically done the same, and it's been a winning formula for them over the years. Now, yes, they do have black ball players on the team, but the makeup of that team usually historically over the years has been Hispanic. And I don't say that to lament. I just say that, look, they're doing something that we aren't, and
right.
If it was, because see, again, there's so many factors. It's not just one. That's the thing. So for this problem to be solved, literally, I mean, this is beyond the whole 5-step program. We're probably looking at 7 or 8 steps that have to be done. And see, you don't have the Mouse McGowans anymore from Alcorn. You don't have the Roger Fedors anymore from Southern. We don't have those long time black head coaches that just stayed in there and stayed with it. You see it in some areas, but again, and the thing I think with the HBCU factor is when you realize that, like Reg said, if they look at basketball and football as intramurals, you can imagine what they think of baseball, softball, golf, or what have you.
Right. Good point. And Orlando, we just have softball coach James Inzana as your alma mater, Norfolk State, on just talking about not obviously what's going on with them in terms of play on the court, on the field, but also, sort of talking about the state of softball, baseball. Some programs, Reggie made a great point about how Howard got rid of their baseball program, and the question I pose to the brothers, I pose to you, is that directly, indirectly part of why we don't see as many of these bets and some of these talented brothers that actually helped win the Red Sox World Series, by the way, in baseball at this point? Is it when you don't have the talent pool at the HBCUs, is that a direct connect to the lack of people that are like us at the highest level?
Well, good evening, brothers. How are you doing tonight? It's a part of the problem, but it's not necessarily the brunt of the problem. The problem is we are we're not dinosaurs, but we definitely know of the dinosaur age. And you figure kids today, LeBron is the greatest player that they've seen in basketball. They don't even remember Allen Iverson, yet alone Michael Jordan. So let's go back. You mentioned who Barry Bonds is to kids today. How many kids can identify Barry Bonds?
Yeah.
Or identify him and say that they've seen him play. Like, we're not even going back to the great players of the 70s, the 80s, and the ones of the 90s that are black. They don't know that. They don't know who Jim Rice is. They don't know who Kirby Puckett is. So, unfortunately, baseball has skipped the last two generations of black people. And it's probably not going to return back unless we take it upon ourselves to, train and show the kids the next level. But it's not entertaining to these kids today. Like they're into they're into e-gaming. That's the next best phase. And it's a very lucrative opportunity that they're professional gaming leagues now. They're building an arena here in Philadelphia for an e-gaming team, a sports team, which is crazy, but they're keeping up with the times. I can't knock it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's crazy.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, no, it's crazy, and baseball also needs to be honest with themselves. I'm talking about Major League Baseball. To me, I still don't think they've realized what the '94 strike did. You killed a generation of kids. Even with the Ripken stuff, and even with the Summer of Love with McGuire and Sosa, and even with all the other things, there's still a huge disconnect. And I think '94 did a lot, and it's still feeling an impact of it in a lot of ways.
Well, it's I think that's a huge point of what you're making about '94, and a lot of people may not notice about me, but growing up, baseball was my sport, and just through the times and different things, even as a kid growing up in the 80s, being a Dave Winfield and a Don Mattingly fan, I just kind of grew out of it, and you grew out of it, and you kind of go back and think about what was going on back then. So if I did at a time where Yankees weren't that good, but baseball was still on top, imagine what T is saying with the 90s, with the 94 strike. I mean, that's just...
To piggyback on what Orlando said, more kids, I think, sadly now more kids identify baseball on the video game more than they do the actual game. And, you know, that's how do you compete with that, especially when it's now become a billion-dollar industry?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. We're going to come back in a little bit, guys, if you can hang. I got to get to Dr. Leon. We're running really late. And then I want to come back. I want to talk about, Reggie alluded to it, with other sports that have players that don't look like us. And Tony just mentioned, you know, like with golf and Tiger Woods. Now all of a sudden the nostalgia is back and the roar is back and all this other foolishness that we had to listen through on Monday after he won his 5th green jacket. Everybody's enamored with him, and he's back in the saddle again and all of that. I want to ask about that, and then touch on the NBA playoffs. But I do want to get to Dr. Wilmer J. Leon, take a break, come back to him. If you can hang, that's fine. If not, I understand. Or call back in before the 48 o'clock hour on the pad. Stay tuned.
May I help you?
Yeah, it's just cold. My sinuses feel like they're going to explode.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
My allergies have my sinuses all stuffed up.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
Tell the man what's wrong.
My sinuses. Sudafed, aisle 5.
Sinus misery? Get Sudafed. Nothing stronger at relieving even your worst sinus symptoms. Not even a prescription.
This could just...
Sudafed, aisle 5! Sudafed, prescription strength sinus relief. Based on 24-hour dose of pseudoephedrine.
And welcome back to the Batchelor Pad. We thank you for joining us. Once again, if you miss any part of our broadcast, go to our website and listen to any of our podcasts of any of our shows at thebachelorpadnetwork.com, the Batchelor Pad, Bachelor with a T, network.com. And, of course, as always, you can follow us on Facebook at Pad Nation, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter. I'm going to go back to the phones and bring in my next guest. Of course, he is a political scientist. He's a very good syndicated talk show host, and he is a best-selling author. He is Dr. Wilmer J. Leon III. And, Doc, always good for you to make a house call for us.
And as always, I'm humbled when I get the invitation.
Absolutely. So a lot of Democrats and pundits got upset with Bernie Sanders doing a town hall on Fox. And, you know, there's a saying that you keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Right.
And so do you have a problem with that? Shouldn't more Democrats do those things with Fox and then say the president, now we got the former governor, we'll get to him in a second, running, do more of that with sort of the left or the MSNBCs of the world?
Absolutely. By deciding you're not going to take your message to Fox, you are continuing to fan the flames and feed the mentality of division in this country. Remember, I said to you a long time ago, during the Obama administration, during the whole Affordable Care Act debate, remember, I said to you, the president should go to Kentucky and hold a press conference in Mitch McConnell's driveway, taking his message of health care to the belly of the beast. Remember, I said that on the show a number of times. So if I am out of my mind, I am at least consistent. Yes, they should go to Fox because A, it shows they're not afraid of that venue or forum. B, a lot of the people who watch Fox News are going to benefit from the very policies that Bernie Sanders is championing. He's brilliant to go to Fox. In fact, if you go back about maybe a year ago, Bernie Sanders did a town, I think we talked about this on the show. Bernie Sanders did a town hall meeting from West Virginia. And in coal country. And one guy stood up and said, I'm paraphrasing here, I never thought I would hear a northern Yankee come into West Virginia and say the things he said. Bernie Sanders went right to those people, took it toe-to-toe with those folks, and you saw a whole lot of smiles and heads nodding by the time Bernie Sanders was done. Because Bernie Sanders is making sense. Now, I don't say that as an endorsement of Bernie Sanders. I'm saying that when you listen to Bernie Sanders makes sense in a lot of areas. So if your game, let me also put it to you in a sports context. When you were running ball on the playground, there were certain playgrounds you only went to if you had game. If you didn't have game, they didn't have to tell you not to come. You knew not to go. And so, am I right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Bernie says, look, I'm a baller. I can go up to Rucker. I can go to Harlem. I can run with the big dogs. So if you got game, you want to play on the best court, on the most challenging courts you can find?
We're talking with Dr. Wilmer J Leon. Doc, I want to stay with Bernie because, once again, the word hypocrisy or, the pundits are and some people who don't like Bernie within his own party or within the Democratic Party, I should say, think it's ironic and hypocritical of him, and I just think it's funny that he runs on corporate greed and higher taxes for the wealthy, a higher minimum wage, and based on his taxes, he releases taxes, and what everybody already knew at this point is that he's a millionaire. And people have a problem with that. And, Bernie mentioned that he's, like you, made a ton of money. I'm not saying like you, I'm saying you, because of your book deals, you make money. And he's saying that he's made it up to the millionaire status because of that. Your thoughts on how this shapes out, and will it hurt him in the primaries?
I think it'll only hurt him with ignorant people. Why can't you do well and do good at the same time?
That's right.
I don't begrudge Bernie Sanders for making money. Bernie Sanders is not a corporatist. Bernie Sanders didn't make his money off of the pharmaceutical company that's making oxycodone and poisoning our communities with opioids. Bernie Sanders, for the most part, wrote a book and made money off of his book. If the people that were complaining about his money could write books, they should follow Bernie's model and become millionaires themselves. So I don't begrudge Bernie Sanders for, again, making sense and being wealthy at the same time.
Literal sense.
I don't have a problem with that. What I do wish is that he would be more outspoken on the anti-war side of the debate, and hopefully Tulsi Gabbard will kind of force his hand in that direction. But a $15 minimum wage makes sense. College for all, free college for all makes sense. Health care for all makes sense. So why should I be angry that the guy that's championing these issues in the Senate has $1 million? That doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, you can't, in a quote unquote capitalist society. Why I think you hit it on the nail. It's okay to do good and do well.
I'm damn sure trying.
Yeah, me too. On the subject of taxes, as I was about to say, the White House just basically told Congress to go, you know what, themselves. You're not going to get his taxes. They'll fight it to the end. But I'm confused about how the IRS plays in this, how Congress can't put more pressure on them rather than the White House. And the second part of the tax question is this something that can hurt any of the candidates if they don't release them and you know, you see some findings that may be contradictory to, say, their policy?
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
The second part is with the whole releasing tax debate, if you will, should all the candidates release it, and could it be a problem for some at once it's revealed on the campaign trail? Just like I mentioned about Bernie, could it be a problem for anybody else? Can the tax problem, I guess, overall what I'm saying, be a problem, an issue moving forward in these campaigns?
I think it looks to me as though most, if not all, of the candidates have released their taxes, and when they do, what you find is most of them, if not all of them, are doing quite well for themselves. I think Klobuchar released hers. And to me, what's interesting is not so much how much they made, but how much income tax they paid. To me, that's what people really need to focus on. If their income is out of balance with the amount of tax they pay, such as they didn't pay any taxes, then you should be concerned. But I think Kamala Harris, she made, let's just say in round numbers, she made like $1.8 million or maybe $1.9 million. And she paid, I don't remember the number. I was surprised at how much taxes she paid.
Right.
So, and I'm not an accountant, and I'm not a tax expert. Lord knows, based upon the check we just wrote. But but I was just surprised that on almost $2 million of income, she paid what I thought was a lot of money. So I think people should look at how much taxes they paid, not how much money they made.
And the early part of that question was, will we ever see Trump's taxes, and why can't the Congress put pressure on the IRS more so than the White House?
That's an interesting question. I think the answer would be that they're following I don't know that Congress as a body is the forum to get this done. Because I can't remember which committee it is, but there's a certain committee that has the power to request to make the request to see the taxes. And so I think they're going through the process. I think the better question would be, well, it just substitute the word Congress for candidates or Congress for party. I think the Democrats as a body should be putting more pressure on in terms of articulating this issue, making this an issue. But I think the proper committees that have the authority to do this are doing it, and I think they're following the proper channels to get it. The question is, what kind of backbone will they have when, as they are now, getting pushback from the White House? And what will they do? Will they just fold up their tent and go home? or will they hold the administration to the letter of the law?
Talking with Dr. Wilmer J. Leon. His book is called Politics, Another Perspective, Commentary and Analysis on Race, War, Ethics, and the American Political Landscape in the Age of Obama. We'll get to where you can find that in a sec. Doc, and I think it's the Ways and Means Committee, if I'm not mistaken. Let's talk about a guy who has a long shot but decided to announce that he is challenging Donald Trump for the nomination in 2020, and that's Bill Weld, the former governor of Massachusetts. He ran last year as a vice president and under the Libertarian ticket. Listen, I mean, when Bill Clinton decided to get in a race, and I'm not saying it's the same, you know, the first President Bush, you know, I think his approval rating was over 80, at least with Republicans, and we see what happened there. What does Bill Weld need to do to even have a sniff of a chance to dethrone Donald Trump in 2020?
Wow. Well, he's a former, two-term Republican governor in Massachusetts?
Correct.
Wow. Well, he needs to figure out, first of all, what lane he wants to run in. And what I mean by that is, what are the three major issues that he's going to champion? And he has to figure out why Republicans would unseat a Republican president and come to his camp. And in this incredibly divisive political landscape, he's got to give a real solid rationale for why Republicans would want to do that. And I don't know that he's capable of doing that.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough.
It's going to be even for a president like Donald Trump, getting him to getting Republicans to shift presidents. That in and of itself is a Herculean effort. Takes a Herculean effort, and I just don't see that right now on the landscape.
Yeah, especially if you have to tread lightly with Trump supporters. So that's where when I say finding your lane. If I were advising him, I wouldn't say just flat out dismiss those folks, but I would say don't insult those folks and go after them. But you pretty much have to figure there's 30% of the Republican base that you're not going to get. Assume you're not going to get them. Do your best to get them, but when you do your math, you've got to figure they're not going to be there. So because as I have advised political candidates, my first question to them is always, so where are your votes going to come from? That's the first question that I ask. Have you done any polling to get a sense of? Well, no. The first question is, how many votes do you need to win? And then the second question is, and then where do you expect the votes to come from? Yeah.
So, we know you need 270 electoral votes. Where are those votes going to come from? What states can you win?
Yeah, it's almost like starting a business and knowing who are your customers. You got to know your customer base before you actually try to be successful. I want to touch on.
Let me just. Yeah, I found the data point. Kamala Harris and her husband Douglas Emhoff, they reported more than $2 million in income last year. They paid $700,000 in taxes. To me, that's a lot of money. They made a lot of money, and they paid a lot of money. Douglas Emhoff might want to check on a new financial advisor.
Exactly.
But that's what that. So to me, the fact that Kamala Harris and her husband, who before she married him was a wealthy attorney, made $2 million in income. Hey, she paid $700,000 in taxes. I ain't mad at her.
Yeah. I want to touch on the congressman in Minnesota, of course, that's been getting death threats even before this latest racist and sensitive thing that Mr. Trump posted on his tweet, and Congressman Ilhan Omar. First of all, she's getting some support from a lot of the Democratic presidential candidates, other Congress folks in her body. And for those who don't know, she talked about 9/11, and I don't have the speech in front of me, and I'll get your thoughts if she wasn't sensitive enough or she didn't say the right words, which she's always been accused of since she's been in the short term in office. But Mr. Trump tweeted, never forget and never again the whole pictures of 9/11 and the towers going down. This from a man who said he can see Muslims celebrating across the water when the horrific attacks took place. It lie. That's all he does. But what do you think the response has been in defense of her? And did she say something wrong based on what you know, or did she try to make a point but didn't go far enough?
No, I think she was very clear. I think she was absolutely right, and I don't think she said anything wrong.
Nope.
The only thing I would have advised her to do when she was talking about the relationship between the United States and Israel, and she was talking about lobbying groups and the pressure that lobbying groups put on elected officials, I would have put it in the context of Zionist-based lobbying groups and Zionism and the Zionist government of Israel. That would have minimized the attack on her, but her argument would have been more empirically correct, because the issue is not Israel, and the issue is not the people of the Jewish faith. The problem is the Zionist project that wants to co-opt Judaism, use it as a cover for its political, settler, colonial, genocidal attack on the Palestinian people and other Arabs in the region. So I wish she had just been a little sharper with her blade in speaking in the context of Zionism, so that she did not just blanketly, not that she did, but she couldn't be accused of trying to just blanketly offend those who follow the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
But she was absolutely right in what she said.
Well, in this country, I'll just be brief. In this country, you can't say anything. You can't even touch 9/11 unless you're saying we'll never forget and the brave this and the brave that. If you have an inkling of, we should have seen this coming because of our imperialism, and our intervention, if you will, are occupying a lot of the country. If you have said anything, anything along those lines, Doc, you are deemed a traitor, and they'll tar and feather you, if not worse.
Right. But no. What we need more strong elected officials like her speaking out, bringing these issues to the forefront, because there are a lot of Jews in this country do not subscribe to the politics of the Zionist government in Israel. She's not standing out there on an island by herself. It's just a matter of who has the loudest microphone.
Final question for you, Doc. Mayor Pete, they call him Pete Buttigieg, his rise so far, and again, it's early. It's not even 2020. We're not even into June or later in the year yet, but we're rapidly approaching, of course. What's been his appeal? I know he talks about capitalism. He directly, I don't want to say the word attack on Mike Pence in terms of his Christianity and his faith and the way he looks at it. Pence is all defensive, and he should be, a crazy man that he is. But what's been his sort of appeal? Because before you answer that, I just want to, I don't want to take anything away from him or better work, but they always got the blue-eyed white guy that's coming to save the day. And, he's just, what he says, he's so genuine and this and that. I have Stacey Abrams. I know she's not running, but Stacey Abrams of other alike that are of color don't have that same appeal. I guess what they say is all twisted and uneducated, but, Joe White guy comes on the scene. He's young and all this, and they're enamored with him. It's just amazing. But what's been sort of his appeal thus far?
Well, there have been those who have been saying for quite a while that the Democrats, in order to move the ball forward, are going to need to nominate a white male. I don't subscribe to that. I do understand the logic. I don't subscribe to it. But in terms of Buttigieg, I think his major appeal is his basic point. This is a new age, and we are facing problems now, the likes of which we have not faced before. And it's going to take new thinking and new direction to address these issues. There are a lot of candidates that always come out and talk about, it's time for change. Barack Obama talked about hope and change. But he talked about hope and change in the context of the current paradigm. Most of the candidates that come out and talk about change, they talk about change in the context of the current paradigm. Buttigieg is saying global warming is here and now, and we're going to have to deal with it here and now. He's appealing basically to millennials. He's saying, I'm 37 years old. I'm not 76 like Joe Biden. So his message is forward-looking, while Joe Biden's conversation is based upon the past. And I just picked those two because, to me, from an age perspective, they are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. And because they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, their messages reflect that. And so I think that's what Buttigieg's primary appeal, and also, there's an intangible when you listen to a speaker. There's there's an intangible about how that person comes across, and does that message resonate? And when I listen to him, he comes across, he's a very, very, very smart guy who is able to speak in very simple terms to make his points. Now, where we really have to see him is when he starts to articulate substantive policy. Because right now, he's still giving you a lot of philosophical stuff. But he's giving you philosophical stuff that is easy for you to digest and understand.
Yeah, and it's sort of like with former President Obama, he had to come on the scene. People don't know who he is, so he's got to say, "Hi,
right.
I'm Mayor, Pete Buttigieg, and who I am," and then he can lay down. And it sounds like he's ready to lay down all his policy beliefs if asked about it on stage or not. So I think
in fact, I'm glad that I think your comparison to Obama is an excellent comparison. But I think he might even be a little better than Obama in conveyance of the message. Right. Because Obama's message was the hope and change thing, which, as I said, is what Buttigieg's message is as well. But I think right now, at this stage of the game, Mayor Pete is delivering that message better than Barack Obama. To me, since you brought President Obama up, to me, an interesting question. One of the very compelling elements for Obama was the fact he was going to be the first African-American president in the country. Buttigieg is running as the first openly gay and married candidate.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see how far that goes, how that plays.
Yeah, I think so. How it plays and how much you always talk about particular topics. How much does it matter to certain voters? Whatever that topic may be, if that's what they're going to the ballot box to vote for or against, him being openly gay and married. The book is called Politics, Another Perspective, Commentary and Analysis on Race, War, Ethics, and the American Political Landscape in the Age of Obama. Fascinating op-ed reading from your days. A lot of stuff coming to fruition. Doc, talk about the book and where people can get it before you go.
Well, they can get it at wilmerleon.com. They can go to wilmerleon.com and order a copy. They'll get an autographed copy from there. It is a collection of op-eds that were written over about a 9-year period. It does say in the age of Obama, but each section of the book, Race, War, Ethics, and the American Political Landscape, has an introduction section that I think makes those op-eds fairly evergreen. And a lot of the issues that I was writing about then are issues that we're still dealing with now. So thank you for the compliments on the book. Thank you for continuing to promote the book. And I'm working on another one, and we'll see how quickly we can get that out.
Doc, as always, I appreciate your time, man, and we will get you on again. Thanks.
Looking forward to it. My pleasure. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
I know they're looking. Everyone's staring.
A scab from a cold sore is so embarrassing, you feel like everyone notices. Get new Campho-Phenique cold sore treatment for scab relief. The only one targeted for the scab, the worst part of a cold sore. Its special formula provides maximum strength pain relief. Plus, it seals in moisture to help prevent cracking, to promote healing. So now, you'll be noticed for other things.
Nice haircut, Lisa.
Campho-Phenique stops pain, promotes healing, and embarrassment.
You know, before Boost, our phone bill was obscene. So we switched to Boost and got lines for the whole family with unlimited gigs for a much more family-friendly price. It's nice to have a phone bill that doesn't require parental controls.
Your family deserves better. Get 4 lines for only $25 per line, each with unlimited gigs. Plus, get up to 4 free Samsung J7 perks with 6 months of Hulu, where you can stream all the shows everyone is talking about. All on the super reliable and super fast nationwide network. Boost makes it easy to switch. Switching makes it easy to save.
Welcome back to the pad. Thanks to Dr. Wilmer J Leon for his insight on all of the candidates, and certainly we'll tap more into the politics as the days and weeks and months go on. And as Tony and I have talked off there, you know, we're going to make sure that I think it's important we talk some HBCU baseball and softball, so the days ahead will be having both men and women in those sports on as much as we can. Want to switch gears, guys. Tony T. Mac McLean, Orlando Hughes, and talk some NBA right now. Toronto's up on Orlando 24-13 with 2:11 left in the first period. But on the landscape, and you know, I'll start with you, Orlando. You look, and you know, I teased you on text and stuff and about our Sixers and things, and I was just telling my son, you know, Brooklyn, the Clippers, and Orlando, all 3 coaches should get some kind of award just to get these teams there, let alone win a game at this point. But assess the field so far. All the top teams, and we'll see what happens with Houston, but all the top teams, with the exception after, and it's only been one game, Houston and Portland took care of business. Denver lost to the Spurs. That's a slight surprise where the Spurs are, but not a surprise with their coach. Milwaukee was dominant. Boston looked dominant in the second half against the Pacers. The Sixers opened up a can of you-know-what in Game 2 against Brooklyn. And Orlando and Toronto playing now. Golden State, I went to sleep thinking that they won. Told my son they won and looked, and they came back and won. But assess this first round so far. It's been some surprises, but some consistency. And it's only been a couple games.
It's been a couple of games. I mean, I'll address the Sixers next last, but Portland, by the mere fact of them going up 1-0 Oklahoma City, so that's huge. You figure Portland's been swept the last 2 years in a row. So for them to taste playoff victory, I think they'll handle business against Oklahoma City. The Clippers versus the Spurs, you got Doc Rivers coaching behind all, but you got a group of guys there in the Clippers who just have the will. They can't win because talent will win out in that series, no doubt about it. But the Clippers will make life miserable for them. You know, the Houston, I didn't catch that game, so I apologize. I can't even speak on that one, but Houston won. The Detroit Pistons, they limped into the playoffs because they were the number 6 seed and they've dropped all the way down to the 8th seed. Blake Griffin is not doing well, so I don't see that as a good matchup against Milwaukee. Indiana, the same thing. That matchup against Boston, Indiana's hurt. They had to fight to maintain where they were and to, you know, stay in the playoff run, and that's a shame because that was a team that was the third-ranked team in the league before they lost Victor Oladipo. And then with the Sixers, I thought Game 1 was what you and I talked about and the whole damn city talks about. Brett Brown is the worst coach in the playoffs right now, but he has probably the second or the third best team as far as players. And last night, you know, it's like you have a team with, you know, I told you, I don't like T.J. McConnell. He shouldn't have been on the floor. He can't play Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert or D'Angelo Russell. He can't play that. So with the Sixers, you go big, and the Nets can't compete. So you figure, you look at the Philly matchup. I say maybe the Nets win another game, maybe, but I don't think they will because they can't match up with the size of the Sixers. Like, they had a team out there last night where the smallest person was Jimmy Butler at 6'7". So I like what I've seen so far in the playoffs. I mean, to answer your ultimate question, I like what I've seen. The only upset that I'll see in this playoff is I believe that the Spurs will beat the Nuggets. And this is no knock to the Nuggets. They don't have that playoff. This is their first taste of the playoffs, and they got a bad draw by getting San Antonio and Pop. And Pop won't lose in the first round with that team.
We have to be concerned if, and this is what you said. I think you said to me off air, give them 5 years or something like that. That window with the big fella, that knee, man, and the feet, and he was hurt in game 1. He played. They didn't need him as much in game 2. They blew Brooklyn out, and that's got to be a concern moving forward. Especially if you have to go big. If you have to go big, you need Joel Embiid to play big, and he's got to be on the floor to play big. And if he's going to be hurt, that's not going to work for this team.
But, LA, I don't think Joel has to grow up. He has tendonitis, and I'm not going to assess the man, but he has tendonitis. So he's not in – no one's saying he's in danger of hurting himself any further than what it is. But he's going to have to play with pain. Now, his peak will be about 5 years, 5 more years maybe at best that you have at him at this level, unless he does a rapid transformation with his body.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
A lot of that is coaching because he shouldn't have to get the ball 12 feet from the basket and then work to get his shot. There are plays, and you get a regular coach can design plays to get him the ball right there in that box position where he can go to work, and no one can stop him in this league once he gets the ball in that close. But every time he comes out to the wing, like you look at the Sixers, man, our system is designed for the team that we had last year. You see, even when Boban's in the game, why is Boban running the point position as the 5, coming all the way up to the top of the circle to catch the ball? Drop the ball in the Boban, he doesn't even jump off his feet. He holds it over his head. He goes over top of everyone. So that's the bad coaching. Just dribble handoff. I'm not about to really cook, but just dribble handoff garbage. Come on now. For J.J. Redick? No. You can get J.J. Redick free by running him off of double screens. So, but their talent level will beat the young Brooklyn Nets. And luckily, he won't be here next year, and you'll see this team moving forward.
T, did you think, Orlando mentioned the first round, and he feels like outside of San Antonio would be a minor upset if they beat the second ranked team in Denver. But Golden State cannot afford to play with this team. Boogie Cousins, I don't know what the – yeah, I don't know. So Cousins is out. Cousins is definitely out. Okay.
He's going to at least miss game 3 from what I've heard. I don't know about beyond, but yeah, he's definitely out game 3. But see, put it this way, that net that they've been playing with for the last 4 or 5 years now, I think is all but gone now. It's all but gone now because now they may catch a break because I still think Utah will beat Houston in the 7-game series. I'm not going to deter after the first game, but they've got to they've got to come to the table. But I'll ask. Maybe I'm wrong in asking this. When is it time to maybe put the blame on Steve Kerr for these guys not being ready?
Well, and just real quick to your point, and what I was saying, with Boogie Cousins out, they can't afford to play with the Clippers. They can give them momentum going back to La La Land, especially if what Orlando thought, and some others think that Houston is just they're just gonna take care of business against Utah. I know you're picking Utah, but if Houston walks through this series against Utah, and Golden State is spent without Cousins in that lineup for the rest of the series, and they get beat up, and that's the MO with you see little Patrick Beverly trying to get inside the head of a big guy.
Patrick's playing the wrong sport. He should be out there on the ice somewhere being the instigator, but that's his style.
But it's working. Like why is this 7'1" guy arguing with this little 6 foot whatever man? But Patrick Beverly's getting it done for. He's getting in the head of Kevin Durant, and he already got him tossed. And that comeback last night was phenomenal. And going back and looking at it, but I think Orlando, if Houston takes care of business against Utah, Golden State has to go to 6 at least. I'm still picking them, but it's going to be awfully hard because teams like to try to beat them up when it comes to playoff time.
Listen, we talked about this. By having Houston set up for the second round, that's going to really hurt Golden State. That's why I think we could see a champion out of the Eastern Conference this year, because the Warriors are still the best team, but they've never had to go through what they have to go through this season. You had Houston potentially as a second round matchup for them. The Clippers will probably push them to 6 games, which will be physical. Them losing Boogie Cousins, I think, actually helps them because they'll play more of Golden State's basketball. I thought Steve Kerr, and you're exactly right, T-Mac. I think he was hurting them by trying to implement Boogie into the system. But with Kayvon Looney and oh goodness, I can't think of the European player.
Andrew Bogut.
And Bogut, right, the Australian, European geography, all messed up right there.
Same thing.
With those guys, they're familiar with that system. But Houston's healthy. You figure Houston's been hurt all year, and they got healthy in that last third of the season. Everyone else is injured. Utah having problems. Like I said, Oklahoma City. I still don't believe in, the college coach from Florida. I don't believe in him. I think he's the second worst coach in the playoffs.
Billy Donovan.
Yeah.
I'll say this about the Houston-Utah series. I know that the TNT crew talked about pushing, Utah game 1, and it's adjustments in this series, especially in the half court. If I agree with them, but even a bigger picture, you can't let the reigning scoring champion just push him to the right and think that that's going to throw him off his game. What they need to do is, double team him, get physical with him, fight through screens, but you got to play straight up. You can't let him get all those guys involved in Houston. They all can shoot. Capella's going to kill him on the inside. They have to make him work for shots. Take away the other folks, play straight up, and make him work for shots, because if you allow him to stay in the flow of the game, he's gonna shoot 11 for 25 or whatever. He's gonna get his 30 points. But you don't want Capella and those other guys getting off, getting 15, 8, 20 points. That's the problem.
Full disclosure, that I despise Mike No D'Antoni, and that's one of the reasons why I don't, have it for Houston. I don't think they play championship ball. I have no problem with Harden. I think, to be honest with you, I think he gets a bad rap, to be quite honest with you. I think, again, he's just one of those guys where he's a scorer. I mean, there's a little, dare I say it, there's a little bit of Michael in him in the sense where he wants to score, But see, the thing with him also is that, and I never thought I would say this, there's a lot of Bernard King in him. And Bernard King was the most ruthless scorer of all time. And I think that's the thing that will help Houston. I to be honest with you, again, I got to sort of, maybe they have to steal a pace from the Clippers, just beat on them, But that would probably take Utah more out of their game, though.
Yeah, I think you're right. The other series that we haven't really touched on, and Orlando, you touched on a little bit, is the Portland OKC series. I'm still not a believer in Russell Westbrook. I don't care what they do until they get some real balance. But again, that might be going back to the coaching that you talked about. But, only one game. But Portland's showing why they're the 3 seed. Lillard is – who has more range than Lillard when he's going? I mean, you might say Steph Curry or whatever, but he was hit at half court. And I know OKC is not going to play the greatest defense, but when Damian Lillard goes, you saw it last year. He dropped 40-plus and all of that a couple of times in the playoffs. They're getting some scoring Orlando out of their bigs. I don't even see OKC winning a game in a series, maybe one. But I think Portland moves on pretty easy.
Portland will move on, no doubt about it. I think that's a 6-game series. Oklahoma City will win 1 game at home, but it'll close out to Portland. And again, I say Billy Donovan because he hasn't found a way to put Russell, Paul George, and you figure you got your guard from the Hawks over there, and so and my brain is completely going AWOL on me right now because I'm forgetting names, brother. So forgive me. The young African brother, the point guard for the Dennis Schroeder. Excuse me, Dennis. I apologize to him. But like that's his best team. So Russell doesn't have the ability to come off ball, and when you run with Schroeder. Then you figure you got one of the Morris twins there, and you got Steve Adams. That's your foul, along with Paul George. But, Billy Donovan can't make that work. Just like, the guy here who's trying to make Tobias Harris into the new improved Robert Covington.
Yeah.
And his love for, again, LA, his love for listen, I got to bring this up real quick. So the Sixers blow out, they completely blow Brooklyn out. So they bring in T.J. McConnell, right? Brooklyn had 87 points. Brooklyn's third-string bench finished, they went from 87 to 125. And a lot of that, Baz Napier dogging the hell out of T.J. McConnell at the point. Dogging him out at the point guard. But here's the key about the Sixers that no one's paying attention to, just in case Joel doesn't go. Greg Monroe is a nice, viable backup center that can spot you a good 8 minutes in the playoffs. And he's a scoring big man.
Let me ask you this, T. Just a simple question. Just going back to the marquee second-round matchup, if both teams hold serve, if Houston can't get it done against Golden State, does anybody else have a chance? Because to me, it looks like at least out west, and people making a case for Toronto and Philly and all that in the East. But if Houston doesn't beat Golden State, is Golden State going to win their third straight title?
I think so, because look, Portland is fun to watch when they're engaged, but that's the problem. They had I don't know who has. I don't think who has more lapses, the Warriors or the Blazers. See, the Warriors can have lapses and still win championships. The Blazers have lapses, and then they're playing golf in the second round.
Yeah, I like Portland a lot, and I think that if Houston beats Golden State, then I like Portland's chances too. To if they meet at that point. Orlando on the east side, real quick. We touched on Milwaukee briefly. I don't think anybody thought Detroit can put up any kind of fight against this Bucks team with the MVP, probably the MVP of the league, in the Greek Freak. But assuming Milwaukee just runs through them, and does Indiana give them Boston anything? I'm hoping just Boston. Because it really, I think Boston is gelling at the wrong time. Like, I think it's too late. Like, they should have gelled a lot sooner towards the end of the regular season.
And they struggled with Indy in game one. That wasn't a game one.
Right. Yeah. They had to come back in the second half and started hitting shots, and some of those guys finally are knocking out stuff. But I'm wondering if Indiana can do a few things. And like I said, you got to give credit to coach. They shouldn't even Indiana shouldn't even be playing right now with some of the stuff that's going on with them. But if they can win a couple of games, does that bang up Boston enough where Milwaukee's just going to kind of run through Boston as well, Orlando?
I think Milwaukee beats the Celtics in 6. But I don't think Indiana has anything left in the tank. They play team defense, but they don't have anyone really that they can get the ball to get them a basket. They play the ultimate team game, which is good. But in the playoff basketball, you need someone to give that ball to that you can trust, and then no one's there. And for the Celtics, and we've been saying this all year long, when Kyrie hits that basket, nobody's being Jimmy Butler for the Celtics. Jimmy Butler scored 7 points last night and was extremely happy that he only had to score 7 points. If Jaylen Brown scores 7 points, or the young kid from Duke only scores 7 points, or Terry Rozier, scores 7 points, what's their attitude in the locker room? Like, I think Brad Stevens, it's being swept because you need that New England market, that Boston, that mystique and everything else. But we have to examine Brad Stevens as a coach. Everyone talks about how great he is, but this year, when you're expected to win and you had everything there, he did a piss poor job, folks.
Yeah, I agree.
He did a piss poor job. And is he really doing it, or is Kyrie just being Kyrie? And the man with the best dribble in the NBA doing his thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that he hasn't. People talk about the injuries and everything, but I do agree and think that Brad Stevens hasn't really done. I certainly think he's a better college coach than Billy Donovan, but Boston definitely struggling. I think they gelled too late for the playoffs. I can't see them making it to the even into the Eastern Conference Finals. I want to switch gears real quick, and we'll keep the up to date on the scores right now. I think Orlando and Toronto are the only ones playing right now. There's a lot of games this week. For some reason, they have Golden State Clippers, Sixers, Brooklyn on the same nights, and then all the other ones.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locker Talk, where you'll hear about NFL stars of today, the NFL stars of tomorrow today. Thank you for tuning in to the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, where you'll hear exclusive content on NFL news related to what's going on outside of what you normally hear about in your everyday news regarding the NFL. You can always reach me directly by Twitter on Locker_report, on Instagram, LockerReport100, and all small caps, Facebook, LockerReport.com, and also you can reach me directly through my email, Barry Barnes at Locker-report.com. I'm your host, Barry Barnes, founder and CEO of Locker-report.com, and thanks a lot for tuning in to Locker Talk once again, as we pretty much 1 week away from the 2019 NFL Draft. Which is one of the things that I covered every year around this time of the year, because this is the time of the year where, after evaluating players, looking at countless videos on unknown talents that's out there that I deem as being worthy players to at least get a shot to make an NFL roster, how some guys can contribute to a team and helping them to win the ultimate trophy, which in football is the Vince Lombardi Trophy, to win the Super Bowl. So this is that time of year with all the work putting in for almost an entire year, so to speak, revved up to the third day of the draft. I know that most of the guys who go through the NFL Regional Combine platform will not get drafted as a top first or second round pick or even a third round pick, because if that was the case, they would have been invited to Indy and Indianapolis for the Scouting Combine. But for the Regional Combine, from over the years, we would always experience at least two players from the Regional being drafted. And primarily it was always in the 7th round, sometimes in the 6th round. But for the past couple of years, there were players that were selected in the 5th round, like Jotavius Brown for the San Diego Chargers. He was drafted that high, and he's pretty much an unsung hero for the Chargers, and always since his rookie year in 2016, he always finished at least in the top 3 in tackles. His rookie year, he actually led them in tackling. So you have a player, such as him. And in today's show on Locker Talk, on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, where you hear about NFL stars of tomorrow today. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the players that were drafted through the Regional Combine platform, and also who was the highest drafted player that came through the platform, and how I believe that this year, I really believe that someone may eclipse the person that was drafted higher from the Regional Combine process. I really believe that this would be the year someone will at least get close to it, at least. I would say at least get close to it. And I'll elaborate that on as the show goes forth. So in today's show, now last week we talked about the AAF and how I believe that although they suspended play, but there's measures that's put in place for these guys to return next season. And I talked a little bit about that, but primarily last week I focused on the defensive players that came through the NFL Regional Combine Invitational in Kansas City this year. Talked about how certain players who I deem as being draft worthy, and some players who I deem as being team worthy, meaning that these will be players that will be signed as undrafted free agents, but still can make the team. About 55% of the NFL is made of players that were undrafted. So there is a place for players who will not get their name called the next week. There's a chance it won't happen, but it does not mean that players will not have an opportunity to live out their NFL dream. And we had countless of players, even Hall of Famers, that have been through that process of not having their name called, but did receive a phone call for an invite to a camp, and they took matters into their own hands, and now, boom, they had launched themselves a great NFL career, and some of them had earned themselves a bust in Canton for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So just because someone's name is not called next week there's still a chance that obviously there will be some players that will make a name for themselves after the fact. And so today we're going to focus on the offensive players who I deem as being draft worthy, players who I know that's team worthy, and also I'm going to talk about some players that were not invited to no combine at all. Players that I've talked about on my publication, which you can go to locker-report.com, where you hear about all the insight that I talk about in this show, but with in-depth conversation, in-depth articles about certain players. And that way you can also follow what's going on in related news and regarding the players that came from the RC. So with that being said, jump into the offensive players to watch out for. But before we get into that, let's talk briefly about some of the history with the NFL Regional Combine and its relation to the NFL Draft. You listen to Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, where you hear about NFL stars of tomorrow. I'm your host again, Barry Barnes, founder and CEO of Locker-Report.com. Now, last year's workout, which was held in Tampa, their first invitational, there were 4 players that were drafted last year. First player was Alex McGough, quarterback from Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, who was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, but he found himself on the Jacksonville Jaguars team towards the end of the season because they would sign him off the Seahawks practice squad. Also, we had Justin Lawler, who was a defensive end / defensive tackle for who came from SMU. That was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. He finished his season. He was on the active roster all season. He finished with 6 tackles. Had the opportunity of winning the Super Bowl in his rookie year when they faced the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 53. So he was a major part of that team, special teams. He came through the process last year. And then we had another guy named Jordan Metatala, who actually was a part of the NFL International Players Pathway Program, who was one of the foreign-born players from the UK that came through this program to develop his skill set to become an NFL player. The Philadelphia Eagles believed that his skill set was already there, and so they brought him in and they drafted him, the first player from that platform, this very young platform going into his 3rd year, had a player that was deemed worthy by the NFL team to be drafted. So he was, the 3rd player. And the 4th player was Austin Pro, the son of Ricky Pro, wide receiver coming from North Carolina, who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, but like McGough, found himself on another team to end his rookie campaign. He was let go from the Bills. The Titans signed him, and a couple of weeks later, the Los Angeles Rams signed him. So just like Lawler, he was in position to win a Super Bowl ring in his rookie year in the NFL, and would have been kind of cool to see that his father had won a ring with the Rams when he was a part of the greatest show on turf, when the Rams won their first Super Bowl, and his son almost followed suit and won a Super Bowl ring with the team that he won a Super Bowl with. So that would have been, pretty cool to see a father and son combo win a Super Bowl with the same franchise. So this year, I believe that part is going to be challenged. But before we get into that, the player that was selected highest in the NFL Regional Combine platform. Now, I'm going to touch on this again next week. But the player that was drafted the highest was a young man named Trey Walker. Trey Walker came from Texas Southern, came through the process in 2015, a remarkable defensive back from the Florida area, 6'2", about 202 pounds. Very humble young man. I really enjoyed being with him, talking to him, during the process of him leading up to the NFL draft and promoting his talent. So he was one of those guys that I really believed in. And the Baltimore Ravens actually selected him in the 4th round, 134th overall. Now, there's a little story behind there, with him being taken that high. And the story was, word got out that, Trey Walker was actually a player who I had talked to, Cordell Lake, who was then at the time the defensive head coach, the defensive coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were on the practice field for the Arizona Cardinals, and he was there. That was his first time coming to a super regional combine. So he was impressed, like a lot of players. I mean, like a lot of, I would say scouts and NFL personnel coming to see this talent no one really talked about or knew about. So I talked to him about this young man, and I thought for sure the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to draft him. But word kind of got out that the New England Patriots had their eyes on him as well, and the Patriots was going to draft Walker. So word got out, and so what the Baltimore Ravens did in that draft, they moved up a couple of slots early to draft Walker, and they actually draft Walker. And when he was there, John Harbaugh was so fond of this young man. When he got to when he went to practice on some training camp, I met him there. He and I talked. He was excited, ready for that season to really jump off. And I was excited for him too. The whole organization was. But the Ravens kind of held him back, so to speak, just to make sure he got accustomed to the speed of the game, because he was a project they thought he would be good enough to be opposite of Jimmy Smith, especially going to his second year. And if you notice how I'm talking about Walker, and I'm talking about him in past tense, the summer of going into 2016 season, he went home and he was driving a dirt bike, and unfortunately he did not have his helmet on while he was riding his motorcycle. And he was driving at night, didn't have his lights on, and unfortunately someone had came out of come from around a corner, and they did not see each other. And Walker hit the car, flew in the air, came down, hit his head, had a severe head injury, and several hours later, Walker passed away at the age of 23. And contacted the Ravens organization. The Ravens organization reached out to me, about the situation, where they knew my ties that I had with that young man. I was really happy for him. And so to see that a young talent like that, was lost early, that was looking to do great things in this league, and for an organization that really focused on defense, he was in the perfect spot. And his attitude, his skill set fit what it took to be not only just a Raven, but an NFL player. So unfortunately, Walker is no longer here, but he still set a high standard, set the bar for players from the NFL Regional Combine to try to set, to see if we'll finally get another player to be drafted in the 4th round. And I believe that this will be the year that we will have another player that should be drafted. I mean, at least 2 players are worthy enough to be drafted in the 4th round of this year's draft. I really believe it. And one of those players who I talked about last week was Cole Holcomb, who was a linebacker for the North Carolina Tar Heels. He can be a 4th round player. But the player that stands out in my mind going forward for us, the offense this year, is definitely, and I've been talking about this young man, running back Dominic Bagalong, who's a running back for Lehigh. Dominic is a solid running back, 225 pounds, 6 foot, runs like a deer. He has 4.4 legitimate speed. For a running back to come out the backfield, to catch the deep ball the way he can is impressive. And then to have the option to either run away a defender, but he still has the power to actually run players over. That's his big attribute that I like about this young man, and I really believe that he's definitely get a 4th round grade or a 5th round grade. If he gets drafted in the 6th or 7th, I would deem that as being a disgrace, because he's that talented. Anything that you need him to do, he can run the whole route tree. Great hands, good feet, very patient, very smart. He can block. He's pretty much the total package that you want to have in a running back. And when he showcased his workout in Kansas City, he wound up having 2 pro days. You listen to Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network. We're going to take a quick pause, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the rest of the offensive players for you guys to watch out for next week's 2019 NFL Draft.
It's your money, You earned it, paid it. Now it's tax time. Time to tax slay it. Like our sight is your sword, let us all slay your taxes. You worked hard the whole year. Now please just lay back as we work hard to make sure the check you get back is a big one. In fact, if it's possible, massive. You deserve it. Use it to play with. Find some hotel to stay at, some poolside to lay at. Your stress tried to slay you. Slay back, lay back, grin. You slayed it. Enjoy it. Win.
Start free today at taxslayer.com.
All right, welcome back. Thank you for tuning into Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, where you'll hear about NFL stars of tomorrow today. I'm your host, Barry Barnes, founder and CEO of Locker-Report.com, and you guys can always shoot me a message or get in contact with me directly on Twitter at Locker_Report, on Facebook, LockerReport.com, Instagram, LockerReport100, all small caps, or just shoot me email at barrybarnes at Locker-Report.com. Now, talking about the offensive players, and I was just talking about Dominic Bagalon from Lehigh University, who I believe should be drafted in the anywhere in the 4th to 5th round. If you get past the 6th round into the 7th round, I really believe that it will be a disgrace, but some squad will have themselves a dynamic running back, which I'm looking forward to seeing in the NFL. Now, the teams that I see his skill set best fit for, he'll fit for any team in the AFC East, any squad in the AFC and NFC South, and I can see him with any team in the NFC West. The individual teams, I definitely see him with the Green Bay Packers and also with the Los Angeles Chargers. So they're two of the teams outside that mix that I definitely see his skill set fit best. Then we have another guy who I believe that is draft worthy, and his name is Tyrod Johnson, wide receiver for Oklahoma State. He came through the regional combine invitational platform. He did not run his 40, but he was the only one to not run his 40 because he had his pro day, which was a couple of days ahead, and he wanted to be fresher for that, and there was nothing wrong with that. Still, he put on a solid show for a player who forego his senior season. He felt as though that he was ready for the NFL now, so he left school early. Some scouts thought that he probably left a little too soon because he was not what you consider their prime target. However, he was their deep ball guy. He was that guy they went to in tough situations, in long down situations. So he showed that he could be trusted in pressure-packed situations. So that's what prompted him also to forego his senior season. Now, when he was at the workout, I tell you, he's a polished wide receiver. I mean, he's very disciplined. He runs his routes very aggressive. He actually don't give away his routes when he's running. He's calculated, and he runs every route the same exact way. Solid speed, runs about a 4.3, 4.4 speed. That's pretty much on the elite level in the NFL. Very calculated, and he has good game speed. Where I see him being projected, I see him somewhere in the early 6th round and the 7th round, all because he left school a little early, but he is definitely draft worthy. And for the teams that I see him with, he could be with any team in the NFC East. He could be with any team in the NFC and AFC West squad. And for the individual teams, he'll be a solid fit for the Carolina Panthers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the San Francisco 49ers. Another player, running back Austin Waters from Rice University. I project him somewhere in the late 6th round, in the 7th round. 5'8", 205 pounds. He's a legitimate all-purpose talent, very elusive, strong, compact, very shifty, has great hands and feet, and has a high football IQ. And he can handle a complex system, which is not easy to comprehend, especially as a young player, but he's able to do that. But the part that really interests me is that his stop, start, and go is ridiculous. He do not lose any speed in that situation, and that is something that scouts salivate over on a player, especially as a running back. And he showed all that at the workout, and the part that made the scouts really impressed with him was that despite if he was had a bad ball thrown to him or if a ball came off the tip of his fingers, they were all impressed with the way he ran his routes. So that right there alone will deem him as draft worthy. Late 6th round and the 7th round. He fit with any team in the AFC South, any team in the AFC and NFC North, and also any team in the AFC West. Individual teams, Seattle Seahawks, Chicago Bears, the 49ers, and the Miami Dolphins. They are the spots that I see him, his skill set, actually having him at best. Now, as far as team worthy, now these are guys that I do not see being drafted, but definitely can be an asset to the teams that they will actually call upon. Now, but this one particular player, I would not be surprised if he did get drafted, and his name is Aris Williams, who's a running back. They call him A-Train from Mississippi State. 6'1", 205 pounds. He runs hard at the middle. He blocks very well, especially in pass protection. And he never. And then the thing about it is that he's never on a breakdown situation. And he also get those tough yards, and he has great vision, and he's very shifty. When he was at his workout in Kansas City, he didn't have his best. He was not happy with his performance when he was there. So he kind of left kind of disappointed, although he had a good workout. But when his pro day at Oklahoma State, I think that's where he had a strong bounce back. The scouts wanted to see what he was able to do in his senior year, because his junior year, he was one of the best running backs in the SEC. One of the solid players to watch out for going into their senior year, but he did not have his best senior year. So scouts wanted to see what he was able to do. And so the scouts got to see him, twice, and he put on a show good enough for a team to say, yes, you definitely want to invite you into the camp. But I would not be surprised if someone did spend a seventh-round pick for this young talent. I see him with any team in the AFC South. Individual teams, I can see him with the Chiefs, I can see him with the Los Angeles Chargers or the Los Angeles Rams. So they're the teams I actually see him at. Wide receiver from Florida Tech, who catches the balls very well in traffic. He's brilliant in the red zone situations, very aggressive, great leaping ability, and very strong. When he was at the RCI, he showed raw talent. He was very aggressive towards the balls, and he had a real strong, fiery attitude, and he shows tremendous upside. Any team in the AFC and NFC North, I can see him being a big fit. As far as individual teams, Houston Texans, Arizona Cardinals, or the Tampa Bay Bucks. As far as on the offensive line, we got a guy named Caleb Adams, a Division III school from Wisconsin Scroll. 6'4", 305 pounds, very agile, good feet. He's very mobile, very extremely athletic. He's very athletic, very mobile, solid pass protector and run blocker. So he can do it all on that offensive line. And he showed at the Regional Combine Invitational that he has tremendous upper body strength, and he fires right off the snap. He don't miss a beat, and he can get out to lead and in poor situations. He's one of those solid guys that's totally underrated coming from Division III school, but he definitely have enough talent that the team will bring him into camp to see what he can do to make their squad. I can see him with any squad in the AFC West, any squad in the AFC South, individual teams, New York Giants, New York Jets, and Atlanta Falcons. I can see him in any one of those situations to succeed in the NFL. Another player, tackle, Anthony Vibert, who went to Jamestown University. 6'4", 290 pounds, very athletic, agile, quick, good hand usage, very balanced, and he has decent feet. What he showed at the workouts, that he has tremendous power and quickness. I can see him with several teams. Any team in the NFC East, individual teams, Tennessee Titans, Seattle Seahawks, and the Chicago Bears. Bruno Reagan, guard from Vanderbilt, 6'3", 315 pounds, very quick, have good lateral movement, good hands, feet, tough, and he's a leader. At the workout, he showed consistency in all his drills, good feet placement, very athletic, and he also showed he has good hand usage. I can see this young man with any team in the AFC or NFC South squad, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Washington Redskins, and the Dallas Cowboys. They're the two places I would see them at. As far as quarterbacks-wise, no quarterback there really just jumped out and say, wow. But out of all the quarterbacks that was there for the Regional Combine Invitational, Vincent Testaverde, the son of Vinny Testaverde, was the better quarterback. Come from Albany, 6'1", 211 pounds. What he showed that he can throw the ball, he have a zip on the ball. He's very consistent in all his throws. He has a strong arm, has control in the pocket, and is very gritty. I can see him as far as team-wise with the Tampa Bay Bucks, where his father was actually, his father was actually drafted number 1 overall in '87. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Giants. He's familiar with the New York area. He can play in that inclement weather. I think that he'll be a good fit somewhere there to be a backup for that squad. Now, Brad Mays. Brad Mays was the quarterback for Lehigh, so he had dominant in the backfield. Now, Mays played in a system that was run dominant, and when he had to throw the ball, he was a quarterback they can rely on. Now, he's more of a rhythm thrower. He's not one of those type of quarterbacks that will start off strong and fast. But as the game progresses, he would really start to pick it up and make those throws the team needed. When he was at the workouts, he showed that he can make good decisions and he can move very well. As far as team-wise, he'll be a good fit with the Arizona Cardinals, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Minnesota Dolphins. He actually is going to have his pro day, his local day with the Tampa Bay Bucks today. Him and Testaverde, they're the only 2 quarterbacks that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers invited to their local day, which takes place today. So we wish both of those guys well, and hoping they can impress the Bucks for that last journey as far as being looked at leading up to the NFL draft. And last but not least, as far as quarterback who attended the NFL Regional Combine Invitational was Amari Hill from Bowie State. Now, Amari Hill, 6'4", 180 pounds. He can be a dual threat quarterback. And the reason why I say he can be because he prefers to throw. He's not going to be the type of quarterback that's get out there and run all the time. When in the HBCU community, solid as a rock. Everyone loves everything about him as well as I do. Calculated runner, not that fast, but he know how to get to a spot. He have a decent release. He has a strong arm, and he is strong, and he's very smart. But now at the RCI, at the Regional Combine, and I said this before, and I even said it in my writing, that his workout was not the best workout there. He had a lot of mechanics issues that he had to work on, as far as with his feet, how his movement, how to be able to throw the ball fluently on all his deliveries. That's something that he has to work on. But what was impressive at the workout was that he was able to process quickly, that he showed that he has confidence, that he have a good touch on the ball, but most importantly, he showed that he was teachable. And when the evaluators was talking to him while he was working out, the scouts saw his progression from the beginning part of his workout towards the end. And because he showed that he was teachable and he could process quickly, that was the part that made his workout good at the Regional Combine. Why scouts, at least 10 teams, talked to him when he was in Kansas City. I saw it myself. So he is not a player that will be drafted. If he do, that'd be great. But I don't see him being drafted. But I do see him on someone's squad, and I really believe that a team probably would say, if we take this young man in, and because he can process quickly, they believe that he can actually become something good, a serviceable quarterback in the NFL that can go anywhere, to him being a full-time starter or anywhere, because what the scouts recognize that he have a high ceiling. He probably had the highest ceiling of all the quarterbacks that attended the Regional Combine Invitational. I can see him with the Tennessee Titans. I can see him with the Pittsburgh Steelers, New England Patriots, the Redskins, and the Giants. That wraps up the players that I see that's deemed worthy that came through the Regional Combine platform. Now, go to the site, check out the article, offensive players where they best fit, and you'll see the list of other players that were not invited to any combine, but are definitely team worthy and earned an opportunity to get a phone call to get looked at by a team. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locker Talk on the Batchelor Pad Radio Network, where you hear about NFL stars of tomorrow. Today, Barry Barnes. I'm the host, founder and CEO of Locker-Report.com. You guys can always shoot me a message directly on Twitter at Locker_report, Instagram, Locker Report 100, all small caps, Facebook, Locker-Report.com, or shoot me a message via email, Barry Barnes at Locker-Report.com. Hope y'all guys enjoyed the show. Tune in to next week. I should have a guest on the show. We'll get a little bit more into the draft leading up to the third day. There's something about that third day, especially this weekend, as we prepare for Easter. Everyone had themselves a happy Easter. And also, don't forget who we celebrating this weekend as well. Everyone.